I never thought the worst betrayal of my life would come from my own son. Standing in the hallway of the beautiful house I had bought for Benjamin and Isabella, I felt my world crumble with every word that came from the kitchen. I had come early that morning to drop off some last-minute wedding surprises, a bottle of champagne from my late husband's collection and the pearl earrings that had been in our family for 3 generations. The front door was unlocked, so I let myself in, calling out their names. No one answered. But I could hear voices coming from the kitchen, Isabella's sharp tone and Benjamin's deeper voice responding. I was about to announce myself when Isabella's words stopped me cold. "Honestly, Benjamin, your mother is becoming such an embarrassment. Did you see how she acted at the rehearsal dinner? Telling those stories about your childhood, laughing too loud, wearing that awful dress. My friends were asking me who the crazy woman was." My heart started pounding. I pressed myself against the wall, the gift bag trembling in my hands. I know, Benjamin replied, and I could hear him sighing. "She's always been like this. Ever since Dad died, she's gotten worse. Always trying to insert herself into everything, always wanting to be the center of attention." The champagne bottle felt heavy in my hands. These were the same hands that had worked 16-hour days to build my real estate business. The same hands that had packed Benjamin's lunches every day for 12 years. The same hands that had held him when he cried after his father's funeral. "She bought us this house thinking it would make her some kind of hero," Isabella continued, her voice dripping with disgust. "Like we're supposed to be grateful forever. It's pathetic, really. A lonely old woman trying to buy love." "You're right," Benjamin said, and I could hear a cabinet door slamming. "She thinks money gives her the right to control our lives, always showing up uninvited, always having opinions about everything we do." I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But my feet wouldn't move. "The wedding is tomorrow, and I'm already dreading it," Isabella went on. "She'll probably cry during the ceremony and make it all about her grief. She'll embarrass us in front of my family. My mother is already asking why we're letting her give a speech." "Maybe we should have limited her role more," Benjamin said. "But you know how she gets when she feels left out." Isabella laughed, but it was a cold, cruel sound. "Benjamin, I need you to understand something. After tomorrow, things have to change. I can't have your mother constantly hovering over our marriage. She needs to learn that she's not the most important woman in your life anymore." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that the greatest gift she could give us would be if she just vanished from our lives. Completely. No more surprise visits, no more family dinners, no more guilt trips about being lonely. Just gone." The silence that followed felt like an eternity. I held my breath, praying that my son would defend me, praying that he would tell his fiancée that she was wrong, that I was his mother and deserved respect. Instead, Benjamin's voice came back quiet but clear. "You know what? You're absolutely right. She is suffocating. Maybe it's time she learned to live her own life instead of trying to live through ours." The gift bag slipped from my numb fingers and hit the floor with a soft thud. Neither of them heard it. They were too busy planning their future, a future that apparently had no place for the woman who had sacrificed everything to give Benjamin the best life possible. I picked up the bag with shaking hands and quietly backed toward the front door. As I reached for the handle, I heard Isabella's voice one more time. "Tomorrow will be perfect, Benjamin. Just you, me, and the start of our real life together. No more Margaret Thompson drama." I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. My heart shattered into a million pieces. They wanted me gone. Fine. I would give them exactly what they asked for. What do you think Margaret should do next? Should she confront them or take a different approach? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter of this shocking story. 8 months earlier, I had been so excited to meet the woman who had captured my son's heart. Benjamin had been dating Isabella for only 3 months when he brought her home for Sunday dinner. I remember spending the entire day preparing his favourite meal, pot roast with mashed potatoes and green beans, just like his father used to love. I even bought fresh flowers for the dining room table and wore my best dress. "Mum, I want you to meet Isabella," Benjamin had said, his face glowing with happiness as he led a stunning blonde woman into my living room. Isabella Cross was everything I wasn't: tall, elegant, with perfect makeup and clothes that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She smiled at me, but even then something felt cold about it. "Mrs. Thompson, what a lovely home," she said, though I caught her eyes scanning the room with what looked like judgment. "Benjamin has told me so much about you." I hugged her warmly, genuinely thrilled that my son had found someone who made him smile again. After his father's death, Benjamin had been so lost, so angry at the world. Seeing him happy felt like a miracle. "Please call me Margaret," I said. "I'm so glad to finally meet you. Benjamin talks about you constantly." During dinner, I shared stories about Benjamin's childhood. How he used to build elaborate forts in the backyard. How he once tried to fix my broken watch with a hammer when he was 7. I thought I was being a loving mother, sharing precious memories. But I noticed Isabella's smile getting tighter with each story. She kept checking her phone and making little comments like, "Oh, how quaint," and "Benjamin never mentioned that." After they left, Benjamin called me the next day. For the first time in years, his voice was sharp with me. "Mom, you embarrassed me last night." "What do you mean, honey?" "All those baby stories showing Isabella my old school photos. She's sophisticated, Mum. She comes from a different world. Her family doesn't sit around talking about childhood accidents and silly memories." I felt confused and hurt. "I was just trying to make her feel welcome, Benjamin. I thought she'd want to know about your life." "Well, she doesn't, and neither do I. I'm not that little boy anymore, Mum. I'm a grown man, and I need you to treat me like one." That phone call was the beginning of everything falling apart. Over the next few months, Benjamin started changing. He began criticizing things he'd never noticed before. How I decorated my house, the restaurants I chose when we went out, even the way I dressed. Isabella was always polite to my face, but I started noticing little things. How she'd whisper to Benjamin when she thought I wasn't looking. How she'd suggest they leave early whenever we spent time together. How she'd make comments about family boundaries and healthy independence. When Benjamin announced they were engaged, I was overjoyed. I immediately offered to help with the wedding planning, but Isabella had very specific ideas about everything. "Oh, Margaret, that's so sweet," she'd say whenever I made a suggestion. "But I think we'll go with something a little more refined." I tried to be understanding. Every bride deserves her perfect day. So when they mentioned struggling to find a house they could afford, I didn't hesitate to help. I found them a beautiful 3-bedroom home in a great neighbourhood and bought it outright as an engagement gift. "Mum, you don't have to do this," Benjamin had said, but I could see the excitement in his eyes. "I want to," I told him. "Your father and I always dreamed of helping you get started in life. This is what he would have wanted." Isabella hugged me that day, and for a moment I thought maybe we were finally connecting. "Thank you so much, Margaret. This is incredibly generous." But even then, I should have seen the signs. The way she immediately started talking about redecorating everything, how she mentioned that her mother thought the neighbourhood was a bit middle class, how she began referring to it as our house instead of acknowledging my gift. Benjamin started spending less time with me after they moved in. Our weekly dinners became monthly, then occasional. When I'd call, he'd sound distracted, rushed. "Mum, I'm busy," became his standard response. "Isabella and I have plans." I told myself it was normal. Young couples need space. But deep down I knew something was wrong. I just never imagined how wrong things would become. I drove home in a daze, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The gift bag sat on the passenger seat like evidence of my foolishness, expensive champagne and family pearls for people who saw me as nothing more than an embarrassment to be discarded. My house felt impossibly quiet when I walked through the front door. The silence pressed against my ears, making every small sound, the tick of the grandfather clock, the hum of the refrigerator, seem unnaturally loud. I set the gift bag on the kitchen counter and stared at it for a long moment before walking to the living room. The walls were covered with photos of Benjamin at every stage of his life. Benjamin as a baby in James's arms. Benjamin's first day of school, gap-toothed and grinning. Benjamin graduating college, me beaming beside him in my best suit. Benjamin and his father fishing at the lake just months before James died. I sank into James's old armchair, the leather worn soft from years of use. This was where he used to sit every evening, reading the newspaper while I cooked dinner. This was where he held me the night we brought Benjamin home from the hospital, both of us terrified new parents trying to figure out how to keep this tiny person alive. "What would you do, James?" I whispered to the empty room. I could almost hear his voice, steady and calm like it always was when I was upset. James never let people walk over him, but he never lost his temper either. He had a way of handling problems that was both firm and fair. "You're too generous for your own good, Maggie," he used to tell me. "Sometimes kindness gets mistaken for weakness. Don't let people take advantage of that big heart of yours." But I had let them take advantage, hadn't I? I'd been so desperate to keep Benjamin close after losing James that I'd ignored every red flag, every dismissive comment from Isabella, every time Benjamin chose her opinions over mine, every moment when I felt like an outsider in my own son's life. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through our text messages from the past few months. Looking at them now, I could see the pattern I'd been too blind to notice before. Short responses from Benjamin, cancelled plans, excuses about being busy, the gradual but steady push to keep me at arm's length. The worst part wasn't even Isabella's cruelty, it was Benjamin's agreement. My own son, the boy I'd raised alone for the past 4 years, had sat there and called me suffocating, had agreed that I was an embarrassment, had nodded along when his fiancée said the world would be better if I just disappeared. At 2 a.m. I was still sitting in that chair staring at the photos on the wall. That's when I made my first phone call. "Margaret, it's 2 in the morning, is everything okay?" My lawyer, Patricia Williams, sounded groggy but concerned. "Patricia, I need you to prepare some paperwork for me. Can you meet me at your office first thing in the morning?" "Of course. What kind of paperwork?" I took a deep breath. "I need to transfer ownership of a house, and I need to know my options for cancelling a wedding that I'm paying for." There was a pause. "Margaret, what's going on?" "I'll explain everything tomorrow. Just, can you have the documents ready?" My second call was to my real estate agent, Carol Martinez. She'd helped me find Benjamin and Isabella's house, and she'd been in the business long enough to handle unusual requests. "Carol, it's Margaret Thompson. I know it's late, but I need to ask you something. How quickly can a house be sold if the seller is motivated?" "Margaret, are you okay? Is this about Benjamin's house?" "Very much so. And Carol, I need this handled with complete discretion. Can you have buyers lined up by tomorrow afternoon?" Yes, I think so. That's a beautiful property in a great neighbourhood. But Margaret, are you sure about this?" I looked at the photo of Benjamin's college graduation, remembering how proud I'd been that day. How I'd told everyone who would listen about my brilliant son and his bright future. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. My final call was to Father Anthony Rivera at St. Mary's, where Benjamin's wedding was supposed to take place in less than 18 hours. "Father Anthony, it's Margaret Thompson. I need to ask you a favour, and I need you to trust me when I say it's important." "Margaret, what can I do for you?" "I need you to be at the church tomorrow. Not for the wedding. There won't be one. But I need a witness to what I'm about to do." The sun was starting to rise when I finally went upstairs. I walked past Benjamin's old bedroom, past the guest room I'd prepared for Isabella's parents, and into my own room. There, hanging on the closet door, was the dress I'd bought for the wedding, a beautiful navy blue outfit that had cost me more than I usually spent on clothes in 6 months. I took it down and laid it on the bed. If they wanted me gone, I'd give them exactly what they asked for. But I'd do it on my terms. I woke up at dawn with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. For the first time since James died, I knew exactly what I needed to do. By 7 a.m. I was dressed in my best business suit, not the mother of the groom dress hanging uselessly in my closet, but the sharp black blazer and skirt I wore to important real estate deals. If today was going to be about business, I would dress the part. My first stop was Patricia's law office. She was waiting for me with coffee and a concerned expression. "Margaret, I've prepared the documents you requested, but I have to ask, are you absolutely certain about this? Transferring the house deed, cancelling all financial commitments for the wedding, this is a significant decision." I signed each paper with steady hands. "Patricia, have you ever had someone you love tell you that your greatest gift to them would be to disappear?" Her face softened with understanding. "No, but I can imagine how much that would hurt." "Then you understand why this is necessary." I slid the signed documents back across her desk. "How long before the house transfer is complete?" "With the expedited processing you're paying for? By 3 p.m. today." "Perfect." The wedding was scheduled for 4 p.m. My next stop was the bank. I'd been doing business with First National for over 20 years, and the manager, Robert Chen, knew me well enough to process unusual requests without too many questions. "Mrs. Thompson, I have to say, this is quite a large withdrawal. Are you sure everything is all right?" I looked at the cashier's check in my hands, enough money to cover every wedding expense I'd paid for, plus the security deposits that would be forfeited. "Everything is exactly as it should be, Robert. Thank you for your help." By 10 a.m. I was meeting with Carol at the house. She'd worked miracles overnight, finding a cash buyer who was willing to close immediately. "The Hendersons are a lovely young family," Carol explained as we walked through the empty rooms. "They've been looking for a house in this neighbourhood for months. When I told them about the situation, they were more than happy to accommodate the timeline." I ran my hand along the kitchen counter where I'd overheard yesterday's conversation. "And they can take possession today?" "The moment the paperwork is finalised. Margaret, I have to ask, where are Benjamin and Isabella? Don't they need to sign anything?" "The house is in my name only," I said simply. "I bought it as a gift. They have no legal claim to it." While Carol handled the final details with the buyers, I drove to the wedding venue. The Grandview Country Club was already bustling with activity. Florists arranging centerpieces, caterers setting up tables, staff members polishing silverware. I found the wedding coordinator, a frazzled woman named Jennifer, who was checking items off a very long list. "Mrs. Thompson, thank goodness you're here. We have a few last-minute questions about the seating arrangements, and the photographer wants to know about family photo timing. Jennifer, I need you to stop what you're doing and listen to me very carefully." Something in my tone made her look up from her clipboard. "Is everything okay?" "The wedding is cancelled, effective immediately." Her face went pale. "Cancelled? But the guests, the food, the flowers? I'll cover all the costs and penalties. I just need you to start calling the guest list and inform them that the ceremony will not be taking place." "Mrs. Thompson, I don't understand. Where are Benjamin and Isabella? Shouldn't they be making this decision?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the signed documents from Patricia's office. "I'm the one who paid for everything, Jennifer. The decision is mine to make." My final stop before the confrontation was St. Mary's Church. Father Anthony was in his office, preparing for what he thought would be a wedding ceremony. "Margaret, you look troubled. Is everything all right with the wedding preparations?" I sat down across from his desk and told him everything. About Isabella's cruel words, about Benjamin's agreement, about my decision to give them exactly what they'd asked for. Father Anthony listened without interruption, his expression growing more concerned with each detail. "Margaret, I understand you're hurt. But are you sure this is the right way to handle things? Perhaps a conversation?" "Father, I tried conversations. I tried understanding. I tried being patient and generous and accommodating. Yesterday I learned that my own son sees all of that as embarrassing and suffocating." I stood up and smoothed my skirt. I'm not asking you to approve of what I'm about to do. I'm just asking you to witness it. Sometimes people need to see the consequences of their choices. Father Anthony nodded slowly. If you're determined to do this, then yes, I'll be there. But Margaret, are you prepared for what comes after? I thought about the empty house waiting for Benjamin and Isabella, about the cancelled wedding and the shocked guests, about the look that would be on my son's face when he realised what his words had cost him. Father, I've spent 4 years trying to fill the hole that James's death left in my life. I thought if I just gave enough, loved enough, sacrificed enough, I could keep the people I cared about close to me. I picked up my purse and headed for the door. Today, I learned that sometimes the people you love most are the ones who hurt you deepest. And sometimes the only way to save yourself is to let them go. The clock on the church wall read 2:30 p.m. It was time. At 3:45 p.m, I walked through the doors of the Grandview Country Club for what should have been the happiest day of my son's life. The main ballroom was filled with guests in their finest clothes, chatting excitedly and taking photos. Isabella's family occupied the left side of the room, her mother Vivian holding court in an expensive cream-coloured dress, surrounded by other well-dressed women who looked like they'd stepped out of a society magazine. Benjamin's friends and my few remaining family members sat on the right side, looking slightly out of place among the obvious wealth and elegance. I spotted Benjamin near the altar, adjusting his tie nervously. He looked handsome in his black tuxedo, so much like his father on our wedding day. For a moment my resolve wavered. This was my little boy, the child I'd rocked to sleep and cheered for at every school play. Then I remembered his voice from yesterday. She is suffocating. Maybe it's time she learned to live her own life instead of trying to live through ours. Jennifer, the wedding coordinator, saw me approaching and rushed over, her face pale with stress. Mrs. Thompson, thank goodness. I've been trying to reach you all day. The guests are asking questions about the delay and I wasn't sure how to handle the situation you mentioned this morning. It's time, I said simply. I walked to the front of the room and asked the musicians to stop playing. The sudden silence caught everyone's attention. Conversations died mid-sentence as 200 guests turned to look at me. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, my voice carrying clearly through the room. I'm afraid I have an announcement to make. Today's wedding ceremony has been cancelled. The reaction was immediate. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Someone dropped a glass. I heard Vivian Cross's sharp intake of breath from across the room. Benjamin stepped forward, his face a mixture of confusion and anger. Mum, what are you doing? What do you mean cancelled? Isabella appeared beside him in her stunning white gown, her face flushed with panic. Margaret, this isn't funny. We have 200 guests here. I'm not trying to be funny, Isabella. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. I'm simply giving you what you asked for. What I asked for. Isabella's voice was getting higher, more shrill. I never asked you to cancel my wedding. Vivian Cross pushed through the crowd, her face twisted with rage. Margaret Thompson, have you lost your mind? Do you have any idea what this wedding cost? What this embarrassment will do to our family's reputation? Actually, Vivian, I know exactly what this wedding cost, since I paid for all of it. I looked around the room at the shocked faces. And as for embarrassment, well, let me share something interesting I overheard yesterday. Benjamin's face went white. Mom, don't! But I was already pressing play on the recording I'd made with my phone yesterday morning. Isabella's voice filled the silent ballroom, crystal clear and unmistakably cruel. The greatest gift she could give us would be if she just vanished from our lives, completely. No more surprise visits, no more family dinners, no more guilt trips about being lonely, just gone. Then Benjamin's voice agreeing. You know what? You're absolutely right. She is suffocating. Maybe it's time she learned to live her own life instead of trying to live through ours. The silence that followed was deafening. I watched as the guests processed what they'd just heard. Some looked horrified. Others seemed uncomfortable, unsure where to look. A few of Benjamin's friends were staring at him with obvious disappointment. Isabella tried to recover first. That's taken out of context. We were just having a private conversation about boundaries. Boundaries? I interrupted. Is that what you call telling your fiancé that his mother is an embarrassment who should disappear from your lives? Father Anthony stepped forward from where he'd been standing near the back of the room. I can confirm that Mrs. Thompson came to me this morning, deeply hurt by what she'd overheard. As someone who has known this family for years, I can attest to Margaret's character and the pain this has caused her. Benjamin finally found his voice, but instead of apologising, he went on the attack. Mum, you're being dramatic. You're making a scene and embarrassing all of us because you can't handle the fact that I'm getting married. Embarrassing? I looked at my son, really looked at him, and saw a stranger. Benjamin, I have given you everything. I bought you a house, paid for your wedding, supported you through every difficult moment of your life, and yesterday I learned that you see all of that as suffocating control. Because it is, he shouted, his face red with anger. You can't just buy people's love, Mum. You can't throw money at everything and expect us to be grateful forever. The words hit me like physical blows, but I stood straighter. You're absolutely right, Benjamin. I can't buy love, and I won't try anymore. I turned to address the room one final time. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologise for this disruption to your day. The bar will remain open for another hour, courtesy of the Thompson family. Please enjoy the refreshments. As I walked toward the exit, I heard Isabella's voice behind me, high and desperate. Margaret, wait. We can work this out. We can talk about this. But I didn't turn around. I had given them exactly what they wanted. Now it was time to show them what that really meant. 20 minutes later, I pulled into the driveway of what used to be Benjamin and Isabella's dream home. 2 cars followed behind me, Benjamin's Honda and Isabella's BMW. I could see them in my rearview mirror, both talking frantically, probably trying to figure out how to fix the disaster their wedding day had become. I stood on the front porch, keys in hand, waiting for them to catch up. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the yard I'd helped them landscape just 3 months ago. The rose bushes I'd planted were blooming beautifully, completely unaware that everything was about to change. Mum, what are we doing here? Benjamin called out as he slammed his car door. We need to get back to the venue and figure out how to salvage this mess. Isabella was right behind him, her wedding dress trailing in the grass. Her perfect makeup was smudged from crying, and her carefully styled hair was coming undone. Margaret, please, let's just go somewhere and talk about this like adults. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. Come in, both of you. They followed me into the foyer, and I heard Isabella's sharp gasp echo through the empty space. The sound bounced off bare walls and hardwood floors, creating an eerie echo that seemed to go on forever. Where is everything? Benjamin's voice was barely a whisper. I walked through the living room where their expensive sectional sofa used to sit, where the 65-inch television I'd bought them as a housewarming gift used to hang on the wall. My footsteps echoed in the emptiness. Gone, I said simply. All of it. Isabella stumbled into the kitchen, her heels clicking on the tile floor. The granite countertops were bare. The stainless steel appliances I'd purchased were missing. Even the custom cabinet hardware had been removed. This is impossible, she whispered, opening cabinet after cabinet to find them completely empty. You can't just take everything. Actually, I can. I pulled the deed transfer documents from my purse. This house was in my name only. I bought it as a gift, furnished it completely, and paid for all the improvements. Legally, everything in it belonged to me. Benjamin was walking through the rooms like a man in a trance. The dining room set, the bedroom furniture, even the washer and dryer. All gone, I confirmed. The moving truck finished loading everything this morning while you were getting ready for your wedding. Isabella's composure finally cracked completely. She sank to the kitchen floor in her wedding dress, sobbing. You've ruined everything. Do you have any idea what you've done? This was supposed to be the perfect day. Perfect for whom? I asked quietly. Certainly not for the embarrassing mother who was supposed to disappear from your lives. Benjamin turned on me, his face twisted with anger. This is vindictive, Mom. This is cruel and petty and… And what? I interrupted. Exactly what you asked for. You wanted me gone, Benjamin. You agreed with Isabella that I was suffocating and embarrassing. You said I needed to learn to live my own life instead of trying to live through yours. I didn't mean… He started, then stopped. You didn't mean what? That I should actually leave you alone? That I should stop trying to help you? That I should take back all the gifts I gave you out of love? I walked to the center of the empty living room and looked around at the bare walls. You know what the funny thing is? I actually agreed with some of what you said yesterday. I have been trying to live through you. I have been using my generosity to keep you close because I was terrified of being alone. Isabella looked up from the floor, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Then why are you doing this to us? Because there's a difference between recognizing a problem and being cruel about it. There's a difference between setting boundaries and calling someone an embarrassment. There's a difference between wanting independence and wishing your mother would vanish from your life. I walked to the mantelpiece where a single item remained. A framed photo of Benjamin as a 5-year-old sitting on his father's shoulders at the beach. Next to it was an envelope with Benjamin's name written in my careful handwriting. I'm not taking this photo, I said, touching the frame gently. It belongs here, with you, and this letter explains everything I couldn't say today. Benjamin picked up the envelope with shaking hands. Mum, please, we can fix this. We can work things out. Can we? I looked at my son, this man I'd raised and loved and sacrificed for. Because yesterday, when Isabella said the greatest gift would be my disappearance, you didn't defend me. You didn't say that I was your mother and deserved respect. You agreed with her. The silence stretched between us, broken only by Isabella's quiet sobs. The new owners will be here in an hour, I said, walking toward the door. I suggest you gather whatever personal items you brought with you and find somewhere else to stay tonight. Where are we supposed to go? Isabella cried out. I paused at the threshold and looked back at them one last time. My son and the woman who had turned him against me, sitting in the empty house that represented everything I'd tried to give them. I don't know, Isabella, but I'm sure you'll figure it out. After all, you wanted to start your life together without me interfering. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me, leaving them alone in the empty rooms with nothing but their choices and the consequences that came with them. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my new apartment in Portland, Oregon, watching the rain streak down the windows as I sipped my morning coffee. The view overlooked a small garden courtyard where other residents tended to shared flower beds. It was peaceful in a way my old life had never been. My phone buzzed with a text from my new friend Helen, a retired teacher I'd met at the community centre. Book club tonight at 7. Don't forget to bring tissues. This one's a tearjerker. I smiled and typed back. Wouldn't miss it. This was my life now. Simple. Quiet. Mine. The aftermath of that wedding day had unfolded exactly as I'd expected, though the details had reached me through various sources since I'd changed my phone number and moved across the country within 2 weeks. Carol, my real estate agent, had kept me updated on the immediate fallout. Benjamin and Isabella had spent their wedding night in a hotel, using the credit card I'd cancelled the next morning. They'd tried to return to the house the following day, only to find the Henderson family already moving in. Father Anthony had called me once, about a month after I'd left. Margaret, I thought you should know. Benjamin has been coming to church asking about you. He seems genuinely remorseful. And Isabella? I'd asked. I haven't seen her since the wedding day. That hadn't surprised me. Through mutual acquaintances, I'd learned that Isabella's lifestyle blog had collapsed after someone recorded her meltdown at the country club and posted it online. The video of her sobbing on the floor in her wedding dress, calling me vindictive while surrounded by the evidence of her own cruelty, had gone viral. Her sponsors had dropped her one by one. Vivian Cross had tried to salvage her daughter's reputation by spreading rumours that I was mentally unstable. But too many people had heard the recording of Isabella's actual words. The social circle that had once embraced the Cross family began to distance themselves. Benjamin and Isabella's relationship had lasted exactly 6 weeks after the cancelled wedding. According to my former neighbour, Mrs. Patterson, who still sent me occasional updates, they'd broken up in a spectacular fight outside Benjamin's new apartment. Isabella had blamed him for not standing up to me sooner. Benjamin had blamed her for turning him against his own mother. She moved back in with her parents, Mrs. Patterson had written in her last email. And Benjamin, well, he's been trying to find you, Margaret. He's called everyone we know, asking if anyone has your new address. I'd deleted that email without responding. 3 months ago, a letter had arrived at my old address. Mrs. Patterson had forwarded it to me with a note. "This came for you, it's from Benjamin. I thought you should decide whether to read it." The letter had sat on my kitchen counter for 2 weeks before I'd finally opened it. Mom, I know I have no right to write to you after what I said and did. I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness, but I need you to know that I understand now what I lost. Isabella and I are over. We've been over since the day after the wedding, when I realised that everything you'd given us was gone, and she was more upset about the money and the house than she was about hurting you. When I tried to talk to her about making things right with you, she told me I was being weak and that you'd gotten what you deserved. That's when I knew I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. I've been going to therapy, Mum. Dr. Williams is helping me understand how I let Isabella manipulate me into turning against you. She helped me see that I was angry at you for things that weren't your fault, for Dad dying, for being lonely, for trying so hard to keep our family together that sometimes it felt overwhelming. But being overwhelmed isn't the same as being suffocated. Being concerned isn't the same as being controlling. And being generous with your love isn't the same as being embarrassing. I was cruel to you, Mom. I was ungrateful and selfish, and I chose a woman who saw your kindness as weakness over the mother who sacrificed everything for me. I don't know where you are, or if you'll ever read this. I don't know if you can ever forgive me. But I need you to know that I love you, I miss you, and I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry. Your son, Benjamin. I'd read that letter dozens of times over the past 3 months. Some days it made me cry. Other days it made me angry all over again. Today, it just made me sad for the relationship we'd lost and the time we could never get back. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognise, but the area code was from my old hometown. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hello? Mom?" Benjamin's voice was tentative, hopeful, and heartbroken all at once. "Mom, please don't hang up. I know you probably don't want to talk to me, but I found your number and I needed to hear your voice." I closed my eyes and leaned against the kitchen counter. "How did you find me, Benjamin?" "It took months. I hired a private investigator." "Mum, I know I don't deserve it, but could we maybe talk? I could come to Portland. I could fly out this weekend if you'd let me." I looked around my peaceful apartment at the life I'd built without him. A life where no one called me embarrassing or suffocating. A life where I'd learned to be happy on my own terms. "Benjamin," I said quietly, "I need you to understand something. I'm not the same person I was 6 months ago. I'm not the mother who would drop everything to make you happy. I'm not the woman who would sacrifice her own dignity to keep her family together." "I know," he whispered. "I know, and I don't expect you to be. I miss my mum, and I want to try to earn back the right to be your son." I was quiet for a long moment, watching the rain and thinking about forgiveness, about second chances, about the difference between loving someone and letting them walk all over you. "One conversation," I finally said. "One weekend. But Benjamin, if you come here, you come on my terms. You stay in a hotel. You don't push for more than I'm willing to give. And you understand that forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting. Yes, he said quickly. Yes, absolutely. Whatever you need. Thank you, Mum. Thank you for giving me a chance. After I hung up, I sat in my quiet kitchen for a long time, thinking about the woman I'd been and the woman I'd become. I thought about the empty house I'd left behind and the full life I'd built in its place. I didn't know if Benjamin and I could rebuild our relationship. I didn't know if I could ever trust him not to hurt me again. But I knew one thing for certain. I would never again disappear from my own life to make someone else comfortable. I had learned to love myself enough to demand better. And that, perhaps, was the greatest gift of all.